To a screenwriter, Paris, 22nd of June 1960. Dear Monsieur, you do me too great an honour in asking my advice. I have never written a shooting script, and I never know where I'm going to place the camera 1 hour before I begin shooting, which is to say, before seeing the actors move through the set. I'm therefore bowled over by the work you have put in, and open-mouthed with admiration. I have never been able to understand flashbacks. That's why I can't make head or tail of my new film, Thérèse sur le pianiste, in the middle of which there's a long sequence set in the past. Consequently, I understood nothing of your subject, which I read all the way through a few months ago and, skimming, a few minutes ago. Films resemble the people who make them, which is why you need have no worries about yours. I don't like reading screenplays, especially when they are full of mysterious abbreviations. Invite me to come and see the finished film, and then I'll have no hesitation in telling you what I think of it. Cordially yours, Francois Truffaut. To a Danish correspondent, Paris, 1st of September, 1960. Dear Mademoiselle, I acknowledge receipt of your synopsis for a thriller, but I do not understand why you sent it to me. You ask me to submit it to my production agent, but I do not have a production agent and don't even know what such a job consists of. You also point out that you are only interested in selling the synopsis. But I neither buy nor sell synopses, nor have any intention of becoming a middleman. You go on to praise the sensitivity and subtlety of tone which makes French films first-rate artistic productions, and you believe that a French writer would be more qualified than you to develop the screenplay, whose action, as you also recognize, does not have to take place in California. In these circumstances, you must understand my amazement. You wish to sell me, or have me sell, the screenplay of a thriller whose buyer will be free to alter the setting, the plot, and the characters, and will have to write the adaptation and the dialogue himself. There must be about a dozen detective stories on a par with yours being published in France every day. Some of these novels become films, but films which are rarely the first-rate artistic productions you refer to in your letter. I therefore regret that there is nothing I can do for you, and remain yours sincerely, Francois Truffaut. To an admirer of Georges Brassens, Paris, 31st of May, 1965. Dear Monsieur, I am replying a little belatedly to your letter, as it pains me to have to disappoint you. But I have no great admiration for Georges Brassens' work, even if I know it quite well. The songs of his that I like best are those of his records number 4 and number 5, or to be more precise, those from Port des Lilas, Au bois de mon cœur, La noce, l'orage, etc. What I don't care for in Brassens is the division of the world in two: pacifists and warmongers, intelligent and stupid people, poets and bourgeois, lovers and cops, and, where style is concerned, his is so calculated and laborious that you can guess what the rhymes are going to be one verse ahead. My preference is for Charles Trenet, Bobby Lapointe, and Bassiac. They are the 3 actor-singers whom I admire. Hoping that I have answered your questions, I remain regretfully but cordially yours, Francois Truffaut. To an agent, Paris, 1st of February, 1968. Dear Monsieur, it touches me greatly to learn that Mademoiselle X would be pleased to have a role in my next film, the more so as your letter specifies that she is very commercial. If I may judge from your letter from the way it was typed and laid out, and in the condition in which it arrived, complete with documents, I should say that Mademoiselle X might be best offered the role of an illiterate slut. You will understand perfectly by taking a good look at the package which you addressed to me and which I am sending back by return of post, so that you will be able to appreciate its tact and refinement. I remain, dear Monsieur, most cordially yours, Francois Truffaut. To the President of the High Court, Paris, 8th of September, 1970. Monsieur le Président, I had made arrangements to testify on the 8th of September at the trial of the distributors and vendors of La Cause du Peuple. Having postponed my departure to the United States until the 10th of September, I cannot once again adjourn the trip, which is why I am now sending you this written testimony. In the first weeks of June, I had read that the newspaper La Cause du Peuple, of which Jean-Paul Sartre had become editor, was being systematically seized even before the authorities had read the articles it contained. I learned also that the police were apprehending, arresting, and prosecuting the vendors of the newspaper, and sometimes even its readers, if they should happen to have at least 2 copies in their pocket, or in the saddlebag of a moped. I knew, again from having read it in Le Monde, that one court of law, that of Rennes, I believe, had for a while refused to prohibit distribution of the newspaper. All of which clearly demonstrated that in order to persecute a newspaper, the Minister of the Interior did not hesitate to commit acts that one can only call illegal. I have never engaged in any political activity, and am no more a Maoist than I am a Pompidolian, being incapable of any feelings towards a head of state, no matter who he might be. I happen simply to love books and newspapers, and to hold very dearly the idea of the freedom of the press and the independence of the law. It also happens that I made a film entitled Fahrenheit 451, which portrayed, in a highly critical manner, an imaginary society in which the state would systematically burn every book. It was therefore my wish that my ideas as a filmmaker and my ideas as a French citizen be in accordance. That is why, on Saturday the 20th of June, I decided to sell the newspaper La Cause du Peuple on the public thoroughfare. It was there in the street that I met other vendors, among them Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir. Many passers-by took an interest in our activities. My pile of newspapers rapidly melted away, and when a policeman appeared in front of us, I had the pleasure of offering him 2 copies of La Cause du Peuple, which he accepted, thereby leaving himself open to prosecution. A photograph taken by a passerby will confirm the truth of this statement. After ordering us to disperse, the policeman then asked Jean-Paul Sartre to accompany him to the police station, which the writer was quite willing to do. Naturally, I followed behind, as did Simone de Beauvoir, and other vendors and a few curious pedestrians. If the policeman asked Jean-Paul Sartre instead of me to accompany him, it was because I was wearing a white shirt, a dark suit, and a tie, whereas Sartre had on a crumpled suede wind cheater that had seen better days. There was already at the vestimentary level, as one says nowadays, a discrimination being made among the vendors of La Cause du Peuple. Those who seemed to be selling it as a means of earning their living being more liable to prosecution than those of us who were doing it on principle. What happened next only reinforced this impression, since a pedestrian, recognizing Sartre, shouted at the policeman, "You're surely not going to arrest a Nobel Prize winner?" At which point we were astonished to see the policeman release Sartre's arm, begin to walk more quickly, draw ahead of our group, and rush off at such a speed that it would have been necessary to start running in order to catch up with him. That was all the proof we needed that there did indeed exist a double standard, and that one is more likely to be arrested if one happens to look like a fishy customer, or rather, a fishy vendor. I can only conclude this testimony by advising my colleagues, the vendors of La Cause du Peuple, to wear their Sunday best every day and refuse the Nobel Prize if ever it's offered to them. Such, Monsieur le Président, are the facts that I would have related at the hearing of the 8th of September. Francois Truffaut. To an actor. Paris, 10th of May, 1973. My dear X, before the release of La Nuit Américaine, on which you worked, I have to tell you that in the final cut, I was obliged to sacrifice your dialogue scene when you tell me the story of the woman on the bench who commits suicide. The film was much too long, and I had to bring it down to 2 hours. That said, you are present throughout the film, in the numerous scenes of the shoot that I've kept. And with your various appearances, you have created a whimsical character who stands out well and whom I consider very successful. I wanted to forewarn you so that you wouldn't be too disappointed if you were to come and see the film at the Cannes Festival when it opens. With my very best wishes, I remain yours sincerely, Francois Truffaut. To a food columnist, Paris, 8th of August, 1980. My dear friend, I have a very pleasant memory of the hour we had together on the radio, except that I thought it was much more recent. I'm sorry to have to disappoint you, but I am on such bad terms with food that I cannot answer your questionnaire. Bruno Bettelheim explains that with food one has the same relationship as with one's mother, and I really believe that that's the case with me. The fact remains that an hour after a meal, I am incapable of saying what I ate. It's the same thing in my work, since in 20 years I've failed to discover the recipe that would enable me to make nothing but good films. You will certainly have heard of those colleagues of mine who are also gourmets: Claude Chabrol, Bertrand Tavernier, Jean-Luc Godard, Alexandre Astouk. I wish you every success for your book and remain yours faithfully, Francois Truffaut.